Let's talk therapy talk. The migration of clinical psychological terms into our everyday vocabulary. And let's take a closer look at the positive and negative impacts of this phenomenon. So bear with me as I unpack this topic in a nuanced way because this is a very important topic, but things are not black and white, and understanding the nuance is the difference between empowerment or harm. So, the popularization of therapy talk refers to the migration of clinical psychological terms into everyday language. Words like gaslighting, trauma, boundaries, the term toxic or narcissistic abuse, and so on, are now staples of casual conversations and social media feeds. If we listen and observe how people talk, we can notice the massive shift in our collective vocabulary. We no longer just have disagreements, we encounter toxic behavior. We do not just experience bad breakups, we survive narcissistic abuse. Friends or family are no longer simply complex or challenging, they are toxic and overstepping boundaries all the time. And this linguistic shift means clinical psychological terms and frameworks are now part of our default social language. But do we fully understand what these terms mean? Because I personally think that many people do not. Now, complex psychological terms can be hard to navigate and fully understand. And the people who work as mental health professionals study this for years and years. And unfortunately, as always, running with half truths and pieces of information taken out of context can lead to incorrect labeling, the breaking down of relationships that would require some growth and work, but totally savable. And when used without the correct understanding, it can do a lot more harm than good. But before we dive into this any further, let's take a look at what led to the rise of this, because this did not happen by accident. The massive rise of therapy talk is deeply tied to internet culture. As social media platforms and algorithms thrive on short, punchy content, and entertainment platforms reward creators who can package complex, let's say, psychological concepts into extremely short videos, and those who can ride the trends do benefit from this in today's attention economy. And all of this has led to the escalation of this phenomenon. This online boom also collided perfectly with the isolation of the pandemic, where we were all locked up at home, and millions of people went online looking for answers to their collective anxiety and general feelings of isolation and loneliness. And unfortunately, to muddy the waters a bit further, the sad truth is that many people who were stuck at home in actual abusive relationships had no way out. So, way too many people jumped on this trend, and voila, we collectively made therapy talk look highly aspirational, modern, and the solution to our challenging or even problematic relationships. While those who were in the depths of this and were stuck in these relationships and they were stuck in these spaces still had no solution. Instead, it dulled down the severity of those tragically real experiences that many victim survivors lived in and still are living in. But saying all that, there is a beautiful side to this cultural shift because for generations, mental health struggles were hidden in the shadows of shame and silence. And then, finally, therapy talk has acted as a powerful tool for destigmatization. It has democratized the vocabulary that was once locked behind expensive clinical doors. It gave people a glimpse of clarity and precise words. It helped them identify genuine abuse and name their pain. It also helped us learn to vocalize a boundary and allowed us to stand up for ourselves. So it essentially gave us a sense of agency we might have never had before. But this widespread adaptation has a darker and I believe it's an unintended side effect. When clinical terms enter public spaces, they undergo something that's called semantic bleaching, meaning that they lose their weight and they lose their exact meaning, as I just mentioned. Common human flaws and correctable behaviors are suddenly pathologized. And the severity, the negative impact, and danger of certain behaviors due to personality disorders, for example, are minimized greatly. Just as an example, an ex partner who was simply selfish and unwilling to evolve within the relationship for his or her own lack of emotional maturity, perhaps, is now labeled a narcissist or a sociopath. Passing sadness is referred to as depression, an uncomfortable encounter is labeled as trauma, and so on. You get what I'm saying here. And even worse, therapy talk is frequently used as a weapon. And some people now use the language of self care, for example, to avoid accountability altogether, and the willingness to take a deeper look at their own flaws and behavioral patterns, or simply accept that not all human connections are meant to work for us. Some might rebrand ghosting a loyal friend as simply protecting their inner peace, instead of having a deeper heart to heart conversation with that friend where more could be revealed and both friends could grow immensely from a new level of understanding while saving the relationship. So it is clear that therapy talk is a double edged sword. It has successfully broken down the walls of mental health stigma, yes, and given meaning and words to many, many people who suffered in silence, questioned their own sanity, and watched their mental and emotional health deteriorate because simply there were no words to explain what they were experiencing. Yet, it has also threatened the messy, empathetic nature of organic human relationships, because true connection sometimes comes with conflict and compromise and mutual discomfort, as well as a listening ear, an open heart, an open mind, time, and opportunity to dive deeper if we must. So we cannot pathologize every awkward interaction we have because it is to our absolute detriment. And moving forward, the goal should not be to simply use and abuse terms and concepts we don't even fully understand, but to use them to gain a better understanding, to seek help if we can and when we can, and abandon psychological terms where they have no place to be. Don't get me wrong. This mental health awareness evolution is a wonderful thing, in my opinion. Having so many excellent therapists and mental health professionals speak about these topics, so many modalities are there available for us. So many excellent books are written about trauma and healing and managing life the best we can, despite perhaps a tough childhood or a painful and highly unsuccessful relationship. But these things can only serve us if we use these terms correctly. And we must use them to build bridges wherever possible rather than walls to isolate us even further. I do empathize greatly and deeply with those who have been through a lot, as I have too experienced things in my life that definitely proved to be a tough challenge to overcome and heal from. I found therapy talk and educational resources to be immensely helpful. First of all, on a personal level, as it helped me gain a much deeper understanding of my own thoughts and feelings and behavioral patterns. Then it helped me gain a similar understanding of the behavior of others. If therapy talk and books and podcast can help us with all that, then we won't fall victims to the therapy talk trend. We won't use these terms to blame others for their behavior or wrongdoings, but we will find understanding and radical acceptance and healing and empowerment through a more complex and nuanced understanding of human behavior, because we are complex beings. And we will be able to understand that some pathological terms should be taken very, very seriously. And that influencers are probably not a safe place or not a safe person to take mental health advice from. And also, when we understand the nuance, we should be able to call a spade a spade. And in some cases, when someone is lacking emotional maturity or has zero willingness to grow, we can acknowledge just that. No pathologizing is needed. So, let me share a couple of important things here that might be helpful. It is important to understand that there are many good and credible and successful mental health professionals out there. Yes, and it is also important to understand that there are different approaches to trauma, for example. After many years of reading, listening, and actively engaging certain modalities, my conclusion is this: the right way of approaching your trauma is the one that works for you. A lot depends on the modality and the approach, but even more, if not everything, depends on the right fit with the mental health professional you are working with. Often, a combination of modalities work best, and no, there is no one easy, simple solution to any of this in most cases. It is also important to understand that a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a psychotherapist are not the same thing. They are all trained mental health professionals, but they provide various levels of care and support. Coaches and mentors usually do not have the same level of education in these areas unless stated otherwise. Any of the above mentioned people can have great observations, yes, and they can have a high level of understanding of therapy talk terms. But I find that a good indicator of one's exceptional understanding is that the way they say it is nuanced and it is well rounded and free from judgment or strong emotional reactions. And they do understand the behavior, but they also see the human being behind the behavior. And that is very important. Another observation of mine is that many people, especially on entertainment platforms, use clinical terms incorrectly. I would like to think that this is an honest mistake, but it can be harmful when someone vulnerable encounters this, accepts it as a full truth, and runs with it. Another important fact is that mood and personality disorders are not the same. And the evaluation methods of those are also evolving from a categorical evaluation to a dimensional framework. So, there is no shame in looking up words and terms. There is no shame in looking up who someone is that you are listening to or whose book you are reading, especially in the mental health and self care space. Not everyone needs to be an expert on a certain topic, but wherever they are talking, whatever they are saying, should be nuanced and well rounded, and they should never claim to be anything other than who they are and what they are. They shouldn't advise above their level of expertise, and they should always clearly state if it's their professional or their personal opinion on the topic or issue, because it factors in and this can make a huge difference. And one more thing: most people we encounter in our lives are definitely not psychopaths or sociopaths or narcissists, but that doesn't mean that we do not encounter them at all. So, being able to observe someone's pattern of behavior is a lot more telling and useful than making our minds up about someone's bad decision on a bad day or a poor reaction to something. People who suffer from certain type of mental illness, I don't particularly like the term mental illness, but for the lack of a better one, I'll use this one, okay? So, if someone is suffering from a type of mental illness, they often know that something isn't right because they also don't feel right within themselves. Not always, but often. Some of these individuals do seek help, some don't. And just how effective the help is, well, that's another complex topic, maybe for another day. And lastly, it is also good to know that there are various approaches to the understanding and treatment of some personal disorders, like borderline personality disorder, for example. And not all personality disorders are made equal. And not everyone who lives with one experiences it in its full severity, if you will. And to complicate things even more, some mental illnesses do cluster, so to speak. So, I hope that we can all come to an understanding that mental illness isn't something that anyone should make fun of, so to speak, or trivialize. Slapping a label on people and using therapy talk when we haven't even grasped the full and exact meaning of a concept can be extremely damaging. Using therapy talk without a nuanced and complex understanding isn't helping any of us, and it minimizes greatly the severity and the danger of the real deal. So, to sum it all up, if I could give 5 things, 5 points, how to use therapy talk for empowerment and how to avoid harm, these are the things I would like to say to you today. Number one is to focus on I statements. Center your language on your own internal feelings rather than using clinical labels to diagnose the reaction and the actions of others. Number two is to define the behavioral root. So replace psychological jargon with simple, objective descriptions of specific behavior that is causing the issue. Number three is to control yourself and not others. Apply boundaries strictly to your own choices rather than using them as ultimatums to try to control someone else's behavior. Number four is to welcome external feedback and allow trusted and only trusted friends or close family members who deeply and truly know you, okay, and they have your best interest at heart, or professionals to challenge your perspective, to ensure you are not using therapy terms to dodge accountability, because that would hinder your personal growth a great deal. And number five is let's protect diagnostic integrity. Let's reserve severe psychological terms exclusively for clinical context to prevent watering down the experiences of people with diagnosed illnesses or the experiences of those who suffered as a result of being in a relationship with someone who lives with any kind of mental illness, diagnosed or not. Now, with all that said, I'll end this recording. Make sure to listen to credible people. Make sure to avoid those who jump to conclusions too quickly. Make sure to research and understand full concepts instead of running with convenient half truths. Ask questions and take time developing a deeper understanding. And I'll leave you with all of this for now. Take good care of yourself. Look after your human connections and stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.